winter time in the stunning surrounds of the New England high country, where the mist hangs thick and frost coats the ground like a crystal blanket.
It's quite thick, isn't it?
Christmas in July. June.
It froze, the same puddle froze yesterday.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's pretty thick. It's probably, I reckon, 4 mil thick. Bubby?
Oh, isn't it? It's like grass.
Look how thick it is.
Yeah.
That's like about 5 mil thick almost. And the outside part, that's probably at least close to 10 mil. Look at it.
The granite hill stands tall and silent, shrouded in the morning fog. Paul heads off to work, so today I've decided to preserve the cucumbers and capsicum that were gifted to us by a kind-hearted local farmer. With the new and updated Ball complete book of home preserving in hand, I set out to make a batch of cucumber relish. It's a cool classic recipe, perfect for adding a tangy finish to any summer barbecue. The large cucumbers need washing and peeling first. Their seeds, saved for spring planting, are set aside, while the peels become a special treat for the chickens. Next, I turn my attention to the capsicum. I wash and de-stem them, setting the stems aside for the compost and saving some seeds for the garden as well. Finally, chopping the cucumbers and capsicum, I measure about 8 cups of each and combine them in a large pot. To this, I also add 2 cups of finely chopped celery and 1 cup of finely chopped onion, and then mix in half a cup of salt. I mix all the ingredients up so they're covered in the salt. Then I cover the mixture and let it stand for 4 hours. The air we breathe, the water we drink, and the dirt in which our food grows all contain microorganisms such as yeast, mould and bacteria, and that's why it's always been a little bit daunting for me to start doing canning or preserving things in the past. But it's actually not as hard as it seems. And with the leftover capsicum chopped up, I just froze those in some sandwich bags in the freezer, and I also made some capsicum stuffed with cheese and baked in the barbecue. It was delicious. The frozen capsicum chunks are really handy to have around when you're cooking. You can just throw it into everything that you're making basically. While I'm waiting for the 4 hours for the mixture to stand, I step outside with a hot cup of coffee. The cold, misty morning reveals the old chimneys that remain standing as memories of the past, and birds flit about. Their movements a quiet ballet in the serene landscape. And it reminds me that even though there's lots of trials and challenges and obstacles with living off the grid, I'm also very, very lucky to be here. After the 4 hours are up, I transfer the cucumber relish to a colander and drain it, and then I'll rinse it with cool water and drain it again. And then I prepare my preserving jars by boiling them in an empty large pot for about 10 minutes. This sterilises them and heats them up so they don't crack when you add your hot relish to the jar. I've got a couple of ball jars and also some kilner jars as well. A tea towel at the bottom of the pot keeps the jars from the direct contact with the heat as well. So while the jars are boiling, I add 3 cups of white vinegar and 2 1/4 cups of granulated sugar to the cucumber relish mixture, bring it to the boil and then reduce the heat and let it simmer. Once the jars are ready, I carefully remove them with my jar lifting tool and place them on a towel covered counter. A jar lifter is a very helpful tool for handling hot, wet jars. Also, by using the towel on the workbench, it prevents the hot jars from coming into contact with the cooler countertops. Significant temperature differences can cause jar breakage. And using a canning funnel, I ladle the hot relish into the hot jars, leaving a centimetre of headspace at the top. I also poke a few chopsticks into the jar that are filled, once they're filled, to release any air bubbles. So if you're new to canning, just remember that there are precise processing techniques, times and temperatures as determined by the acidity of the food being preserved. So make sure you use a tried and true recipe that's been used over and over again so that you don't make any mistakes. There is a local lady called Tracy that makes jams and chutneys and relishes and all sorts of spreads and condiments, and she does a wonderful job, and I've always bought her like onion relish and things like that. And yes, I just appreciate how much work she's put into everything that she does. So if you're ever in Tenterfield, go to Make It Tenterfield and get some of her delicious goods there. Her name's Tracy, so Tracy's homemade condiments and relishes are beautiful. So usually only fruits and pickled foods or low acid, sorry about my rooster there, low acid foods can be preserved using this method, because vegetables, meat, poultry and seafood require greater heat exposure, so they require a pressure canner, which unfortunately I don't have but would love to get one. This recipe makes about 6 500ml or 6-pint jars, but because I had jars of all different sizes, I had another batch that I did as well. I wiped the jar rims with a clean, damp paper towel. So just a tip on this recipe as well, a lot of people like the pickles to be crisp, and to prevent a cloudy brine, it's best to use pure granulated salt that's free of iodine or anti-caking agents. It's also a good idea to prepare a few extra jars if you haven't used this recipe before, just in case your yield is larger than you expect. If you don't have any extra jars, it's okay, just use an airtight container and store it in the fridge and use that first within a few weeks. And before using jars, inspect them carefully for any chips, cracks or fractures. Then I centre the lids and screw them down firmly but gently, just until resistance is met, and then I increase it a little bit to fingertip tight. So the method that I'm using, which is just a large pot of boiling water, is just called a boiling water canner. I watched a lot of YouTube channels that do canning, and I found that gave me great confidence to give it a go. So if you are interested in seeing more videos about canning, I would recommend you have a look at Our Small Footprint and also Bush Edge Homesteading. I return the jars to the boiling water in the pot and make sure the jars are covered by at least 1 inch of water, and then bring it to a full boil. So home canning gives you the pleasure of eating natural, delicious produce at your fingertips year round. And one of the best things for us people living off-grid is that you don't need to use up space in your refrigerator or freezer to preserve your food. It can just be stored in the cupboard or on a shelf for up to a year. Heat processing is what destroys the harmful microorganisms that cause food spoilage. I boil my jars rapidly for about 10 minutes after it becomes a rolling boil. How long you need to process your jars is based on the altitude of your area. So at the moment I'm we're basically located about 15-20 minutes from the nearest town, which is about 900 meters altitude. So we could probably do 5 minutes, but I do 10 minutes just to be sure. After 24 hours, I check the seals by just pulling them up by the lid, and also a sealed lead will be concave in the middle, so that's a sign that the relish is safely preserved. Stored in a cool place, these jars of relish will bring a taste of summer to our table long after the frost has melted and the mist is lifted. Out here, every small task connects us to the land and to each other. And these can be a great gifts to friends and family, making each day a cherished part of our journey. Thank you for being here with us on our off-grid journey. Stay wild, and I'll chat to you next time.